Welcome back to Autism for Badass Moms, the podcast where we change the narrative of what it means to be a mom raising a child with autism. I'm your host, Rashida, and listen, we got an incredible guest here today. Khrystine, badass mom. I don't want to say super mom. Badass mom of two children.
Two.
Don't
give me any
I'm giving
extra.
you more.
I know.
I'm giving them.
Just
What should
keep
be like
the
me?
two.
Two children, married, Christian, which is amazing, and she's got some huge things coming in Philly,
Yes.
Which I'm excited about. I don't want to tell the details, so we're going to talk about what it is to raise two children. I'm raising four, so let's talk about it.
Yes.
So
yes, let's get into it, right?
Khrystine, welcome again.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I was crushing on her outfit. I don't know. It's just absolutely amazing. I love it. I love it.
You. I was so stressed about it. I had to run it by my best friend. Everything. I'm like, you sure? Told my husband right before we left. He's like, you look good.
You look great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, but thanks for having me. You as well. I can't believe we're doing this finally,
I
right?
know.
We started this back in end of February, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? Thank you for being here.
Of course.
So why don't you tell our listeners about your journey with autism, how it started?
Okay. So, excuse me. As Rashida was saying, I have two sons. They are 6 and 4 years old. Sorry. And then my oldest, of course, was my first diagnosed with autism. He was diagnosed when he was 3.
Okay.
So that was March of 2020. And then my youngest, Rory, who is 4, he was just diagnosed this past March of, I guess that would be 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. So with RJ, I feel like we didn't really know he was our first. So, and of course everyone gives you the he's a boy, he'll catch up, what they say. But your mom gut just knows, no matter what. I'm like, this isn't just that he's a boy.
There's something there.
Yes. And I have, healthcare background. I'm a pediatric nurse, but it's different. Not every field of nursing, you're looking at specific milestones. So when I became a mother, that was, I was making sure the child, set up at a certain age and all those things. And he was meeting them, but there was just something that I was like, and then the speech regression happened. So he had started to talk.
Okay. He
would say, Mom, Dad, you all these things. And then one day I just realized, I was like, I haven't heard him say Mom in a while. And, of course, I was like, you're crazy. And I started putting on everyone's radar. Have you heard him say this? And it wasn't until I put it on the radar that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I see. And then he was doing this.
Was he saying other words?
He was. He had Mom, Dad, basics, hi, bye, up, he was very young at this age before he was even 2.
Okay.
And then it slowly started to fade out. And that was when I was like, okay, now. And regressions are a normal part of development. They, they will tell you, if a child's learning to walk, sometimes they may forget something that they already learned because your brain's just kind of overloaded. So I had a neurologist. I took him to a neurologist at CHOP immediately. And her advice was, go home and enjoy him. You're just paranoid.
Ooh.
That was her. And, not to anything against her at the moment, that's what I needed to hear, right? Because I wanted someone to tell me I was crazy and I was just, this is all in my head. So I took that for a little bit. It comforted me in that moment, right? But then the weeks went past and it wasn't comforting anymore because I was like, I am not paranoid. My son was talking and he's not talking anymore.
Yeah, there's something
I'm like, I'm not paranoid. This is not paranoia. So we went through and then we did speech and things like that. And it was actually a speech therapist that we were seeing who said to me, have you done an evaluation? And it was the way she, kind of suggested it that I knew that she was seeing what I had been seeing at home.
Okay.
So then we went through that process.
What was it like to finally come that this is really truly what it is?
The moment when he was actually diagnosed, diagnosis day. Okay, so leading up to, I kind of knew, right? So I was in the beginning, I had no idea, but closer to the diagnosis, I mean, you've done enough research. Your mom gut lets you know. So I thought I'd be okay. Like, I was like, all right, whatever it is. Because I was never I never cared about a diagnosis. I just wanted to get him the help that he needed. Whatever support he needed, that was my main goal.
Yeah.
And then it was COVID had started taking over, right? So we had a Zoom. So we actually got him in right before everything shut down, thank goodness. And then we had a Zoom call about like follow up when they actually would tell us. And in the instant, I just kind of like froze. But then afterwards, it was like your worst fear, like, you know, being confirmed. And not because autism is a bad thing, but you just do not want your child to struggle at any point. You're just like, if you can help that. So I went into well, first I shut down. I'm not going to say I went into like figure this out mode. I shut down a little bit. I had to, you know, take it in and be like, okay, where do we go from here? But it didn't take me long to jump right into, okay, services. Like, let's do what we have to do because I'm his mom. We're his parents, you know.
Did you also, being a pediatric nurse also help with that process?
I will say yes and no.
Okay.
The difference is in my field of work at the time, I was an ICU nurse, so I worked in critical care. I took care of the sickest of the sickest children.
Wow.
So most of the children I've ever taken care of, they don't walk, they don't talk, they're bedridden, they're intubated. I mean, literally.
Okay.
So I take care of very sick kids at work. So it didn't really help because autism, the way it presented with RJ, that's my oldest, he wasn't unhealthy. So I felt like I had nowhere, if it was a health thing, you know, like I felt like I would have been more prepared. But this wasn't, he's healthy, he's happy, he's not sick. This is not a sickness, you know. It's like his brain just works different, and I need to figure out how his brain is working so that I can tap into how he's learning this world. So I don't really feel like it did in a way, but in that instance for first being diagnosed, I was like, I can do sick kids. If you would sick, I'm your girl, you know. But this was different for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always, you know, ask about like family and friends because sometimes, you know, we are like, okay, this is what it is, and let's move into action. They're just like, I don't know. So, what was that like at that time when you got the actual diagnosis?
So the actual diagnosis, I would say, my husband was supportive. But I'm going to call him out a little bit.
And y'all, the husband is here, you know, supporting in the studio, just so you know.
So I'm going to call him out. He's right here, so I'm not talking about him behind his back, y'all. But he still had a little bit of denial. I could see it in him. Like, he was supporting me, right? Because that's what he does. Like, you think this is what's going on and you want to take him to all these appointments and you want to do all these evaluations, I'm going to support you in that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I feel like a little bit later that it kicked in where he started saying, like, I'm like, you're not doing this for me. Like, he needs this, you know, where I feel like, and I think it was just his hope that, like, she's just going overboard and then it's going to be over with when she's done. I'm going to support her through her moment of, like, having that.
Which is amazing.
Yes,
right?
Yes. He was, like, amazing at every appointment, everything, but I don't think it clicked with him, like, right away. And he still is. I mean, don't get me wrong, but that's the gift and the curse. He's still on, like, everything's going to be fine. That's just him. He's just everything's going to be fine. Give it to God. It's going to be fine. So he helps me in that aspect, but you know how that is. I'm like, I need to do something. Don't tell me that. I need to do something.
Let me just worry.
Yes.
Let me just be anxious.
Yes. Let me worry in peace. Is that even a thing, right? Let me worry in peace.
I don't know.
I know.
There's good question.
Certain part of it.
Anyway, look it up, please. Worry in peace.
Can you worry in peace? I don't know.
What about other family members?
So, both of our moms, super. I mean, I could not ask for a better mom and a better mother-in-law, honestly. And our dads, too. Both grandpas are right on board. I mean, we have an amazing support system. I couldn't do half of what I do, I feel like, without my support system.
Oh, that's great.
Even when they don't understand, they are just like, okay, what do we need to do? They were grandparents, you know, family, friends, you know, and we're just like, tell us what we need to do, what we need to learn to best support you. So I was
Incredible support system.
Yes,
Incredible.
yes, we do.
Incredible.
Super blessed. I can't even say enough that they just jumped in like that.
Now, are there any challenges that your son?
So my oldest, I will say, we did like a little behavioral stuff with him, and it's funny you bring this up because it's more recent.
Okay.
He will elope. That's something we're working on. We had an incident in school this past school year where he actually got out of the building,
Oh, wow.
not just out of the classroom. So that took us back a little bit. It was another worst fear, coming true for you.
Yeah.
So more so that he's a very, but I want to do this, and then I'm gonna still keep trying to do that. So you have to keep your eye on him, busy in that way.
You're saying no, but I'm looking at that door.
Yes. So I think, and he had too much downtime, and his teacher even said that. She was like, I knew, like she does. She was like, I watched the door, but they had like, how like a joint commission comes out type of thing. She's like, I knew I couldn't block the door because they were visiting, and then he's seen his opportunity. He's like, yeah, I'm going for it. So we do struggle with the eloping that I'm working on, like safety, that's number one.
And I can't imagine that worry.
Yes.
Because nobody wants to lose their kid.
No. Even the things that you do after, like everyone was like, get angel sense and get an air tag, and we do all that now, but I'm like, there's still, I don't want to have to GPS my child to find them, like that was a real like fear. I was like, okay, that's great, I can pinpoint him, but I don't want to have to use this. It's the reality that I do at this moment, but it still is like, everyone's like, all right, well, you have a solution. I'm like, that doesn't like, I mean, it helps, yes, but like, I don't want him to ever go missing that I have to track him. Like, that's still a fear that I'm like, when I have a child, I may have to track,
Yeah. My son, since he was little, had a bracelet.
Okay.
So that if he were to go missing, the unfortunate thing is, if he goes out of town, the signal would go away.
Gotcha.
So it was always, seeing the bracelet was a constant reminder of like, oh my gosh. The beautiful thing about my son is that my son runs in slow motion.
Yes.
Like he's not a sprinter. So I think we'd catch him. But again, there is that fear of what if, I struggled with, should I put him on the bus, right? Like, are people going to like watch him? Like, what if he gets lost? So yeah, that is it's
a huge
struggle.
Fear.
Yeah.
It really, because you can't focus or concentrate on anything when you're worried about the safety of your kids. You can't go to work. You can't be productive. And you feel like you have to be there all the time. And the reality is, as parents, we cannot be with our children all the time, 24/7, even as much as we try to be. So when you can't be there and you feel like, wow, like I need to be there, but I can't be because we have a life to live and bills to pay. Mommy and daddy got to go to work. And then school is your other safe place, I trust I still trust his teachers. I know RJ's a handful, but you trust these people, like they're like second mom, I'm like, all right, if I can't watch him, you watch him. I'm giving him to you. So that does break your trust for a minute. It's hard because you're like, but there was no blame involved. Like, I know that can happen on anyone's watch. And, I was thankful that, it's not if something happens, but when, and when it does, how you react and how we go forward from it. It wasn't detrimental. He was out of the door for maybe 2 seconds. They were right on his heels.
Okay.
And then alarms and things like that got put into place.
And, also, too, I wonder if, then a new plan was put in place.
Yes. Yes.
To just kind of like, okay, if this were to happen, this is what we're going to do differently.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I wrote a long letter.
Okay.
I had a whole plan typed out, and, yeah, it was very, very extensive.
This is what we're going to need to do. We're going to call in SWAT.
Yes, yes. Helicopters over the building during school hours. Yeah, It was like, they were like, what? Yeah, I was like, we just need alarm. And I was also like, I'm a mom. Like, do you want me to buy these alarms? Like, you could reimburse me later, but I need to be able to send my child back to school Monday and not worry. So what do we need to do?
Yeah.
But the school jumped right on it. They really did. They were so apologetic, and they jumped right on.
Now, is it just the eloping, or is there any other behaviors?
I would say the eloping is like our biggest, and then just like sensory things. He does struggle with, He does a kind of like a gnawing on his hand, like, you know how people like bite their fist? He does that, but most of it is like a frustration. I will say RJ's biggest struggle is his communication piece, because he has so much he wants to say that he's trying to say, and then he's frustrated.
Yeah, and that's common.
Yeah.
You know, that is common.
Yeah, if you're upset about something and your mom's like, oh, you wanted an Oreo, but you did not want an Oreo, you're like, what? Like, I could just imagine if, like, your belly hurts and then someone's trying to give you, and you can't really communicate, and you're like, what are you talking? Like, I would be frustrated all day.
And that's another part of the journey, right? Like, do you ever, when you know your child is sick, right? My son has had a double ear infection, didn't know, wasn't sure, and I felt so much guilt, like, oh my gosh, because he couldn't verbalize that to me. Do you feel at times like, I don't know what the word is, stuck when just trying to figure out what he wants?
I do at times, but I will say that's where my nursing background does help me, right? And I say all the time to my husband, I'm like, I don't know what moms do who, like, don't have any type of healthcare background. I do a full, he laughs, like, you do a full head to toe assessment at the end of the night. But I do, because I want to figure out if I missed anything.
Yeah,
I mean, they would be asleep, and I'm in there, like, flashlights, checking teeth. I found RJ's first cavity. I was like, that doesn't look right. I took him to the dentist. They're like, yeah, this is very early stages of, like, because I'm in there with a flashlight.
I was in there.
Seeing everything. And I just check because I don't know. I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
I know I will miss things, but I try hard. And not the big things. Small things, all right, catch me a break. Every mom does. But I'm like, the big things, I want to make sure I'm checking.
Yeah. And that's and again, amazing that you have that background so that you can kind of, all right, like, pick it up quicker. Because again, there's times where my son, a behavioral happened, and I'm just like, I'm not understanding. I don't know if he has a headache.
Yeah.
You know, or I don't know that his stomach is hurting. And so again, there's that feeling of like guilt, like, oh, I should have known, and things like that. So that's a common experience with a lot of moms.
Yeah, I feel like the big thing I always say is, like, the sore throat, because it's like, you can't, that's really a hard one for me. So I'm always trying to, like, does your throat hurt? Because, like, as a kid, I had strep a lot, so I don't know if I'm just, like, PTSD. I'm like, you okay? Because I'm like, I can't see back there. I'm trying to, like, get, so, luckily, I don't think they've had strep, but, you know, I'm
but
always,
you'd
like,
be on it, though.
I know, I'm checking. I'm like, are you sure? Belly aches and stuff. They're getting older, so it is getting a little easier, but I try.
Now you had your second child.
Yes.
So tell me about what, you know, and again, diagnosis of autism.
Yes.
So what was that experience like?
Oh, I don't want to cry. So my husband's probably laughing over there. He's like, oh, she's about to cry.
Now I'm looking at him like.
Yeah. He's like, oh, he'll joke. He's like, she's a walking tear. That's what he says. My second son, it was harder.
Yeah.
It was much harder. I'm not going to cry here. So
But it's okay to cry.
I know.
Here.
I had so many hopes and dreams for my second child. We didn't know we were having boys or girls. We waited to find out with both. But even with RJ's diagnosis, with Rory, I was like, no matter, this child is going to help RJ. This will be the child that takes care of RJ if they need be, or teach RJ how to talk, you know, because they tell you, like, socializing, you know, with a child and stuff. So
now you got me going.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So with Rory, it felt like another set of, like, those dreams you have as a parent. It was, like, crushed. I took Rory's diagnosis 10 times harder than RJ's. I don't know what it was. I was just, like, I was mad. I was angry. And COVID didn't help either, because then COVID came along, and I was like, oh, my goodness, like, we're stuck in that. You know, he had just been born. So I just felt like I got cheated out of so much. Because I'm like, I didn't have, like, you know, towards the end, things were shutting down. Then he was born. So then everyone kept telling me, because of COVID, right? They were like, all the babies we're seeing are delayed because they're not seeing anyone. Everyone's wearing masks and they're not speaking. Then, of course, and then he has a brother who's non-speaking. So that can delay children's speech as well. But still, I just kept saying, I'm like, no, this isn't that. This isn't COVID. This is, and I wouldn't even say it, right? Because I wasn't putting it out into the world. I was holding it in. Every little thing I would see, not bringing it up, not going to mention it. It's going to just go away. And that's what I talk about a little bit on my Instagram, because I was like, you can ignore something as much as you want, does not make it go away, you know, and it just hinders the amount of time you get your child those services, right? But yeah, so it was much harder for me. And then it was the weirdest thing. I kept saying, when he starts walking, if he walks on his toes, this is all things I'm thinking to myself. If he starts walking and he walks on his toes, if he's a toe walker, I'm gonna know he's autistic. That's all I had in my head. So leading up until waiting for him to walk, right? I'm not saying this to anyone. I'm not even
So you're keeping
this all bottled up, not even bringing it up to no, I didn't want to put it on anyone else's radar, right? I didn't want to make anyone else upset or worried, or and I'm just waiting for my child to start walking. You know how late that is. We're like a year and something in, right? And he starts walking and he goes right up on those toes, Rashida. I'm not even kidding you. Like, and like runs off. It was the cutest little thing, and it was like, but I can remember his first steps feeling like a gut punch, and it should have been a happy moment. I can remember, right? Like,
because you had those hopes.
I was waiting. I was like, I just want to see when he walks what happens. And when he went on those toes, everyone's like, oh, he took his first steps and everything. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, but he's autistic. I know it. I've been waiting to see him walk. I don't know what it was. I just knew. I was like, it's gonna come out that way. I don't know if it was God, my intuition. So it was like a happy moment, and it was like a gut punch. And I still wasn't saying anything. I just still kept waiting and watching.
Because you were hopeful.
I was very hopeful. I was making deals with God, right? Not just praying. You know, you're like, if you don't do this, then, this or I would say, like, it was almost like I was, like, bargaining with him. I was telling God what I couldn't handle, right? And I was saying, I can't handle this. Like, don't do this again. Like, telling him, like, if I tell him enough, because, everyone preaches to you, God only gives you what you can handle, right? So I'm like, well, if I tell him enough that I can't handle this, he's going to fix all this right now, because I'm telling you I can't handle it.
You can see I can't handle it.
I'm like, hello, you see everything. You see me breaking down.
Did you see me crying in the other night and then this morning?
Right. So, so I was doing the bargains with God, and then more and more, and then he would reach a milestone, and then I would feel like, okay, maybe we're, I would talk myself out of it, because Rory, same thing, started talking. He talked more than RJ did. He spoke more than RJ. I mean, I have videos of Rory, like, calling for RJ, or I would say, like, RJ, come downstairs, and, like, Rory be like, RJ, like, waving him downstairs. And the same thing, the speech started to regress. I just couldn't believe it.
Did you still hold on to hope even when you started seeing that?
I was no longer hopeful that he wasn't autistic.
Okay.
I let go of that, I think, after a while. But as, so much hope for what my children can do. But I think at a certain point, when I seen the toe walking, I don't think I had any more hope, I would say.
It's like enough.
I knew. It wasn't that. I was just like, at that point, I was just like, let's just see how this unfolds. So I was just keeping it to myself. And I was almost waiting for someone else to see it, to confirm it. Like, I was like, I'm going to wait until, like, my husband comes, or my mom says something, or his mom, or, the people closest to him.
I relate so much to that, because when I had my second son, and I wasn't so much, like, looking for something. I was maybe highlighting everything that he was doing that was different, because my first son is nonverbal. So, wow, he is talking and he is engaging. He's making more eye contact. Yes, this is it. And then, oh my gosh, I saw him lining up toys. I saw him lining up toys, and I was just like,
you knew.
I knew.
You knew. It hit you right there. Smacking your face is the smallest thing, and you know.
Yeah. And I tussled. I don't say I fought God.
Yeah.
I tussled with God.
He swings way harder, right?
And I myself felt it was a punishment. Did you feel
I did.
that?
I did. I think it came from having this notion that blessings are rewards. And that's kind of how you're brought up. If you're brought up in the church, I would say that's what most people believe, right? You look at your blessing as like, I did good and God's rewarding me for being a good person.
Right.
So when you have a prayer that's unanswered, you're like, oh, you're punishing me. You're mad at me. And then you do it twice. I was like, oh, God hates me. Like, what is going on? Like, I am so faithful and I mean, I wasn't the best Christian. I don't go to church, but I'm like, I'm a good person. You know, you think like, and then I'm very like, also like karma and good. You put good out and good. I'm like, I've given my life to help children. I work with children. I take care of the sickest babies in the world. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Yeah. Like, you know, it felt like I was being punished. Yeah. Not once, but twice. I was like, oh, okay. And as hard as I was telling you I couldn't handle this, and then like I was like, you doubled down on this?
Same.
I was like, oh, okay.
I thought it was my first son that I prayed too much for because I was told, oh, you're not gonna be able to have children, but if you want to try, you can try.
That was us.
And just prayed and prayed and prayed, and I was like, well, maybe this is my fault. I prayed too much for him. Maybe it wasn't supposed to happen, but God was tired of me praying, saying that.
Oh, that just hit me hard because that was us too. So I have endometriosis, and I think I was like 21, and I had a doctor tell me, like, you need to go home and have kids now because the longer you wait, it'll be harder for you to get, to conceive. I wasn't even engaged or anything. I was with my husband at the time, but I literally had a doctor tell me, he's like, do you have a long-term boyfriend at home? Like, I was like, I'm a planner, right? I was like, well, I'm not just going home and having babies. So then we didn't think it would happen easily, right? I never lost hope that I would be a mom. I'm like, no, God's going to let me be a mom, and same thing. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and we got pregnant very easily. I mean, we didn't have to do. I was already seeing like fertility specialists and stuff, preparing for if I would need to because of how bad my endometriosis was. But we didn't need any, of those interventions. So yes, I felt the same way. I was like, okay, I was told all this time I couldn't have children, right? And then I'm like, God, you showed me that like it's your will, and I got pregnant so easily. And then I'm like, and now this? Like, I'm like, what is going on? It took me a long time to change that perspective. I would say recently, and I just remind myself that, like, you prayed to be a mom, and you are a mom. You didn't ask what kind of mom to be, right? You didn't say what kind of child you wanted.
You didn't specify.
You didn't specify anything. You just said your heart yearned to be a mother, right? And God gave me that tenfold, like I have to put in extra mama work to be a mom, but I just asked to be a mom, and that blessing, that prayer was answered. So I have to give it to him for that one. And then my children are amazing. Like, they are we forget they don't speak. I swear to you, we forget they don't speak. We laugh all day. I tell people, I'm like, home feels so normal. It makes me like a little hermit because I'm like, I don't want to leave here. This is our normal space. I do not have non-speaking, non-verbal children in this home. I just have kids who are running around driving me crazy, and I love it.
And being kids.
I love it.
Being kids.
I love it so much. Yeah, but he answered the prayer. I'm a mom, and I'm a great mom, and I love being a mom. And I don't tell myself that enough. My husband tells me all the time, he's like, you're a great mom. And I'm like, I'm going to start saying that because I am. I give my all. Like,
did you ever say to yourself, I know I've went through this stage, and I know we had other moms come on saying that they feel like a bad mom.
Yes. Every day I feel like, I have that, I lay down, the kids are asleep, and I like, what could I have done better? Where could I have been more patient? Because those two, they could, my patient. Then I'm like, come on, I'm trying. I don't want to yell. I don't want to be a mom who yells all the time. But yeah, so I always have that, like, what could I do better? Or I figure out something, and I'm like, even if I figure out something for Rory, and it's a good thing, I'm like, why didn't I know that for RJ years ago? Like then I'm mad at myself. Like, took you all these years to figure that out? Like, there's no book to this. You're just going with the flow. And I had to come out of a dark place to get here. To be honest, it was a lot in the beginning.
With your second son, did it take a while to get through what you were feeling?
I will say yes. Yes, it did. I was very depressed. I will say, like, very, very depressed. That 2021 was like, oh, okay. Showed up with like a little bit of, and then 2022 just came right in for the kill. I tell everyone, I'm like, it was like a gut punch, I'm just coming out of that. I will honestly say, I'm just coming out of that fog of having 2 children diagnosed. This is March was a year, you know, since Rory was diagnosed. And I will say, like, the past few months, really, I just feel a different lightness in myself that I didn't have the past year.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And navigate life, too.
Because as moms raising a child with autism, you just want to know they're going to be good when we lose
Yes.
Earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to start tearing up again. That's my biggest thing. I just want to make sure that when I ask God all the time, I'm like, keep me on this earth until my children no longer need me physically, right? Because, as you know, you always need your mom mentally.
Yeah.
But physically, you know, so that's a big fear because as parents, I feel like you get to that age where you're like, my kids are good, right? Like, most of the time you get to age, and I don't know when I'll have that.
It's so, you know, and again, it's so, we should have had tissues up in here. What is happening? Just letting it drop.
I know, that's okay. That's okay, right? This is real.
You know, but it is a fear that comes and goes when I really think into it.
Yeah.
You know, because will he have to go into a group? Like, do I really have anybody that can handle him and stuff like that? And you just think the worst.
You do. You think the worst. It makes every relationship that you're in more significant, I will say, because you're like, you want to make sure the people you have around you and your kids are like, they really love you and your kids because you're, oh, thank you. You know, you want to make sure that so it's, you know, you're like, who's going to be around? Who's going to step up? And if I ever needed to, because, you know, I joke all the time, like, I'm going to live to be 110. And that's what I really hope to. But realistically, I don't know if I'm making it to 110. But I have that dream that I want my kids to be here until they're 110 if that's what they want. And I can be here then, too. So I'm like, all right, who's that one who's going to step up and make sure and check up and whatever type of support they need, right? Because even if, you know, I'm gunning for fully independent children, but if they need a little bit of help, who's going to step in and care?
Right.
Because as you get older, you realize there's not a lot of people who care.
Yeah.
And it's a sad part, you know, and that's why I had to get out of that. I had to find my community, my people, that I ran from at first. Like, it's like a club you don't want to be a part of, but you're getting thrown into.
Yes. How did I get here? How did I get here?
I'm like, oh, wait, we're doing that. Okay, all right. And, like, I remember the first time I was like, whoa, all right, so we're doing this first event, or, you know, and someone like hashtag like autism moms or something. I remember being like, I just wanted to be a mom, right? I didn't want the first thing ahead of it. And I was just like, all right, we're doing it though. But it took a while. I had to find that. I had to go out and search for that. And that's, my mental health has done a full circle since doing that. I had to stop hiding.
And it can be a roller coaster of emotions, and this is not something that you get the diagnosis and then you go through the feelings of grief and sadness and all these things. Like, it comes back up when you don't expect it.
Yes.
You know, and, you know, I just think about, I used to say to God, like, listen, I can't die. Like, I'm telling him, you know, if anything, I cannot die.
Yeah.
You gave me these kids, you know I can't die, right?
Yeah.
Because then I'm like, but then also too, you know, I'm like critiquing everybody who could potentially take my child, and you know, I don't know, I don't think they're qualified, and you know, that's why I gotta live.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And then the people that you care about and who care about your children the most are all older than you.
Yes.
That's the hardest part of it, right? Because you're already praying for immortality.
Yes.
And then you're like, I trust maybe 3 people on this earth with my children. And they're all older than me, 20 plus years older than me. Like, I tell them all the time, like, what do I do when we have to do this without each other?
And this is something that we do face.
Yes.
And, you know, I think about, you know, we're so badass.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
like, there is fire behind that.
Yes.
Because I always say we can go through many emotions in one day. We have to face the truth.
Yes.
You know, there's no hiding.
Yes, there is not.
There's no hiding. And the unknowns.
Yes.
And be comfortable with the unknowns.
Yes.
Like, again, Will my child be able to talk? It's not looking like that.
Yeah.
Do I sometimes hold on to hope that maybe like when he turns 18, he's going to be talking? I can't say I don't, but it's just like the reality is I don't know that that's going to be.
Pray for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah.
You know, like, or expect the best, pray for, I don't know, whatever the saying is, but like you have to be realistic with yourself. Otherwise, you're just like, what do the kids say, Delulu? That's what my niece says. She's like, yo, don't be Delulu.
I need to figure out like what website will tell me like the new words and stuff, like, because my kids be saying things. I'm like, are you cursing me out? Like, what's happening
like,
here?
Oh, Delulu. I'm like, oh, does that mean I'm just living in my own world? She's like, yeah, she keeps me up to date.
Who creates these words?
I
like,
don't know.
Like, there should be like
TikTok.
Delulu.
Yes.
I say that to my kids, like, what is wrong with you?
Yes. So what you do, you have to be realistic, and you're like, there may be some level of support, and I'm not gonna live forever. And then what does that look like? And that's the stress of it. I lay in bed worrying about when my children are 70-year-old men. Why? My children are 6 and 4 years old at the moment.
It is so hard to stay in the moment for us.
6 and 4, and I'm worrying about when they're 70.
Yeah.
I can't even enjoy that. Like, we went to get water ice today because now I'm in bed and I'm thinking about when they're 70 years old. I read something, I don't know if you follow, I believe her name's like Cooper's Voice. I want to say it.
Okay. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, we're all kind of in that same autism community. We all know, we all see each other. And she was saying, I want to say that was her. She's worried about who would be at his funeral, if anyone would show up to his funeral.
Wow.
And I was just like, it was so reassuring that I'm not just alone in that. But I was like, why are we worried about this?
Because we're moms.
You know?
You know what I mean? Like, and
baby.
dads too. But like, but we're moms. And
like, who's going to be at her child's funeral? I'm like, oh my goodness. And then she put another fear on my list. I was like, well, thanks. Because now I'm like, and you feel, it takes a mental toll on you. You feel like a negative person, right? Because you're thinking about death and sickness and all these things all the time, trying to prepare for them. And who wants to think about that? No one, right? Those are the things you put in the back of your head.
Do you feel like it's overwhelming?
Yes. Yeah, so overwhelming. And I try not to let my brain go there as much now. I pray. I pull out my Bible. I have like 50 million Bible apps on my phone. I find other things to do. But grief creeps up. It really does. When you least expect it. My friends were joking about, what did she say? She joked something, and she said something about when she's a grandma, right? And I thought about it. I'm like, will I ever be a grandma? Like, then that's in my head all day. Then I'm worried about being a grandmother. You just became a mother. Most young mothers are like, don't you ever make me a young grandma, right?
Never.
Right? And then you're sitting there like, I want to be a grandma. Like, why are you worried about being a grandma? Like, you're crazy.
These emotional battles that we face on a regular basis, you know, can be so consuming. And it is so hard to pull sometimes out of that, especially once you get it in your head.
Yes.
Because now I'm thinking about, like, my son's funeral.
Yes.
I wasn't thinking about it.
I know.
But,
Then you're going to go home and think about it, too.
Yeah, and then it's going to be like...
You're going to text me later, like, thank you very much.
Right? Like, shoot. I'm going to do that.
But how reassuring is it that another mom does get what you mean? Because if you say that to some people, they're like, what? You don't say
why are you upset about? Why are you thinking about that? Why are you upset about that?
There are some people you know in your life right now that you would never say that to. Because you know that they would just be like, okay, is she losing it? Is she going off the deep end?
But there's that, it's just so... You know, we have all the same emotions, and our fears may be a little different, but we can get that, right?
Yes.
But most people fear about them, you know, passing away and what's going to happen to their child.
It's a whole different world. Even as far as the comparison, right? So you know how they say never compare kids. But you can't help it. As a mom, you compare at least your kids to each other. And it's funny because I never compare my kids to typical children. I'm good at. But my toxic trait is I do subconsciously compare my children to other autistic children, other special needs children. I can't help it.
I do too.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like, should I have worked harder got him so much speech that he was verbal because another child that's in his he can speak. Ugh.
I know. You feel, and then the mom guilt kicks in because you feel like, what did that mom do that I didn't do, or or what should I have done differently? It's like typical children. I'm fine. I could be around all kids all day, and I don't compare. My best friend's children, I love them to death. They're always like, "Hi, Khrystine," and like we laugh and stuff. And I love my babies, but it's funny. I pick up doing it at like different things. I'm like, if I see a kid who is nonverbal and then their mom talks about them being verbal, it puts me in an overdrive. I kick back into research. But it makes
sense that you go to that place because, we have this story that we tell ourselves that we're a bad mom, right? So anything we can find to co-sign, I always say co-sign that check, we're going to grab on and hold on to that. I'm a bad mom because look at their same age and, but their child, the mom must have been doing extra.
Yeah. You always want to say that they did something that you didn't, and not just that it's that kid, right? You don't ever just want to give the kid credit. Like, that was just what they were going to do. You're like, that mom did something and researched something.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They just all learn. And same with our children. They're all going to do it on their own time. Some kids will be artists and some kids will be doctors, and that doesn't change.
So how do you manage those uncomfortable emotions, when that sadness hits?
My faith has been strengthened tenfold in the past few months.
Okay.
I ran to people. Now I run to God. I literally did. If I was having it, and the people who loved me, I ran to my mom, my husband, my dad, my in-laws, my best friends, and there's just no peace God can give you. And I kept asking for signs and wisdom, and I wanted to hear God's voice, but I wasn't doing the things to hear God's voice. Like, God's voice is, his word is written.
Yeah.
But I was like turning from the Bible. Like, I was, because there was still that with God there, I was like, but you did this, how I'm coming to you for help, you did this, right? But yeah, that's, now I take a moment. I'm like, I just pull out, like I said, my app. I talk to my husband. I tell him all the time, like, you're the only person who knows 100% what I'm going through, because you're the only other person raising these two children, right? So, like, if you don't get it, then, but it's hard, too, because sometimes I know he's having such a good day, and I don't want to, like, mess up, like, I'm worried about something, and how we just said, right? Like, I put someone on your radar. I don't want to do that to him all the time, so that's why I was like, I don't want to keep doing that. And when I was feeling like that, so now I just, I'm going to take a little minute, say a prayer, ask God to change my thoughts. And most of the time, if I get into prayer, the other thoughts kind of just go away. They'll come back, but in that moment, I'm like, all right, I feel a little better. And then I just kind of try to pick up and go on what I was doing until they come back.
Because, our higher power, again, it's a different level. He knows the things that you say to yourself that you wouldn't tell anybody else. He knows all your thoughts.
Yes.
Right? And so who best to go to and ask?
Yes. And I thought that it was important. I didn't want to give up on my relationship with God, as mad as I was at him. I knew that, right? I knew I was mad, but I knew I didn't want to give up on that relationship. So the only thing I know how to do is I'm like, I'm going to still talk to you. And it wasn't a prayer. It was me telling God I was upset with him. Like, I'm like, I am so mad. Like, I don't know how to not be mad at you anymore. I'm trying not to be, but I feel like you did this because in my heart, I believe you control everything, right? So it took a while. And then, like I said, I just had to I got back in the church and, into my Bible and really trying to just listen to other, like, women ministers, and I really had to do that and got back in the community. Like, in the autism community, I try to go to events and meet friends, meet moms to understand. I had to do that to come back around.
You're going to your higher power, engaging in the circle that feels what you feel.
Yes.
It's nothing like that. Just to feel supported and people to get it. You don't even say a word, and I can look at you and be like, oh wow.
Yes. I went to on Friday. The kids and I, after school, we went to an event. It was an autism event for children. It was completely free. And one of my friends, she also is a mom of 2 autistic children. And it felt amazing to walk in and feel no judgment. I could not say it enough. I just kept telling her. I texted her a bunch of times after. I was like, I just know that everyone got it. There were so many dads there to help. And like, I was just like, this is amazing, because in most groups, I'm the autism mom, right? I'm a mom. We're all moms, but there's not always. But this, no, we're all moms, all autism moms. You know, and I didn't. There was no. I didn't need to make the difference. You know, I didn't. We're just here. They kicked right in. They help my kids. I'm helping with their kids. At one point, I didn't even know where my son was at, and I was helping someone else's kid.
But you could be your real, true self.
And not only that, I could just let the kids just go. Just
oh yeah.
That feeling is just like, if he doesn't say excuse me, if he bumps a parent, like I didn't have a parent turning around, like giving the look, like, well, who? They were like, no, go ahead, bud. They knew it was no. I had kids running me over, bumping me with bumper cars and stuff, and I was having a ball, as every parent was. Like, we all just felt so relaxed and comfortable.
So I got to share a story. So my 13-year-old, who, I don't know when he did this. You know, he did this.
Yeah.
He must have been 12. And we went to a jumping place.
Okay.
My son loves strings, everything strings, and to him, hair is strings.
Yeah.
And so he's jumping, having his best life, and a girl with his long hair was jumping like next to him. He's like, oh, hair. He took her ponytail, took her down to the ground, slow motion. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, slowly running.
Yeah, then I see the other mom. I'm like, this is a lawsuit. Like, this is not good. So I'm jumping on there with my shoes on. And then I take him like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, so sorry. She's like, no worries, no worries. He's my daughter's in your other son's class. You know, who is also autistic. Yeah, I was like, woo.
You're like, look at God.
Yeah.
So I was gonna have to fight it out of
right?
here. Oh God, he didn't mean it.
If she said some words, I would have been,
I know.
My goodness.
That's another thing, right? The stank eye, and then you gotta I had to change myself. It makes you see the whole world different. Don't even look too long, because I like, you can't be like that. And I'm like, I just don't get it.
It teaches us a lot. It teaches us patience. It and it's a lot of work on ourselves to understand. You know, there's times where I'm very reactive, and I'm just like, but God's like, slow down, like just.
Autism didn't change my kids. They are who they were born to be. Autism changed me. Yeah. I'm a completely different person. Yeah, completely different person.
Now let me ask you a question. What is self-care to you? Does that exist in your world?
It does. It did not. For a while. I will say I gained a bunch of weight. I did. I look back and I don't even recognize myself. I show you a picture of me in 2020, you'd be like, wait, what? Yeah, it was like, I just was like in the house eating, secluded. Of course, everyone's dealing with COVID. I got a new baby, and then the next year it was like, another child autistic, and I was just like,
it was a lot. It
was a lot. Everything was taking its toll. Me and my husband were bickering more than ever. We were going through marital things, and I was just done. I was like, and at that point, I'm in my head, I'm like, am I going to be a single mom of two autistic children? Because I'm like, me and him couldn't see eye to eye, and that's not us at all. Right. Like, we've been together for forever. We've been friends for forever, more than anything. He's my best friend. So I'm like, since when don't we get along? Like, it was just like we were just both tapped out. You know, I'm like, since when is this? So, you know, that was a lot, too. Yeah. But I started going to the gym. I would do 30 minutes. I was like, okay, let me just start. Let me just try. Then I started taking walks if it was nice out. Once the weather broke, when I tell you, I bought one of those wagons, like the 2-seat wagons. I would put the boys in. I walked. That was my self-care.
Nice.
Peace, quiet. My kids didn't mind. They could be in there with
they would enjoy it.
iPad, seeing the world. I mean, I would walk places where, like, I would show, like, my husband when he came home at work, like, he's like, what'd you do today? I'm like, oh, we walked here. And he's like, from home? He couldn't admit, but it was, like, the only way I can clear my brain. I probably made some shoes, like, ran over. That's how much I was walking. Like, I just couldn't stop walking. Anytime my brain got crazy, I walked. So that started. And then I noticed that that was what was making me feel better, just getting outside, right? And that's what I do. I make sure it doesn't matter what I do, but I'm like, I need daylight. I need some type of fresh air, if it's in the yard or what, but I need that.
And people, myself. You know, I don't know if people realize that stress is stored in the body. And so the best thing you can do is move. Even trauma is stored in the body, and moving. And also too, just looking at how the air is on your skin and just all the flowers or whatever weather it was, is a distraction, and your body could be at ease, in that moment. So that's great.
So I try, I'm trying. It's not always easy, but I gotta get out.
But you're trying, right?
Yes.
You're trying.
Yes. How about you? What do you do?
Oh my goodness. I can ask every mom, and I still have the same reaction too. Like when you hear self-care, it's just like, oh, it's always
because
like,
you're not doing well at
I
it,
know.
right?
It's like, I don't know. I think I'm getting a C right now.
You're like, I do, and then you don't want to feel like, you're like, I do take care of myself.
Yeah, and I think we judge like our self-care, right?
Yeah.
So I'll judge. I had a hard day at work. And I was like, oh, I'm going home to the kids, right?
Yeah.
Pandemonium, I already know. Yeah. And luckily, I walked in, and I was like, nobody was around. Like, they were there, but in the rooms. Yeah. And I'm like, this could be self-care right now. I could just pretend like I'm not home and go into my room and close the door.
Yes. Quiet.
Good 10 minutes, I survived.
Literally. It's so little is all you need, right? Like,
but
you don't need a lot.
It was nice.
You don't need a lot.
It was nice, because what kind of mom would I have showed up to? Again, I was exhausted. I was pissed with the world. And, I wouldn't have been any good to them. I'd be like, oh, yeah, go sit down. Yeah, hi, kind of thing. Yeah. So taking those kind of moments, sneaking in, telling my husband, you need to be a bodyguard. So when I come in, you guard that door.
Yes.
Right?
Don't let them in here.
He's made a mistake before. He was like too far from the door, and one infiltrated.
Yeah.
Like
security. Start calling for security. Security.
Like, what kind of this is just work on this.
Yes.
This is your only job.
Yes. Come get your children.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Right?
I'm like, get your kids.
He's like, I was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I was
always
just
in
like,
the bathroom.
That is not when you're working.
That is dad's self-care. They do not be in there doing anything.
Yes.
They lie.
Yeah, I'll be knocking on the door, and I'm like, wow, 20 minutes later, and you're scrolling.
3 podcasts later. I can hear you. I can hear the podcast you're watching from outside the bathroom door. That's what I tell them.
Yeah, you could do that out here.
Yeah. I'm like, you can watch it on the couch with them while they're all doing their thing.
But that's beautiful, because that's their self-care.
Yeah,
right?
It is. And I let him have that, too.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to bother him. I know he's sick of me. But then I give him his moment, and then after I'm like, get your children.
Yeah,
come get your babies.
And that is really important, especially if you're in a relationship, being able to, because sometimes we think about ourselves, and I need time, and we don't realize that our partner is in this with us, and that also too.
Yes,
they're
and
entitled.
I am like I tell him, since I've started like being more in like different communities and going to events, I want to find him like a dad's like thing. I tell him I've been telling him, you have to experience that. I want him to feel how I felt. Yeah. Being around autism moms and like this feeling of like just someone getting it.
And they're out there.
They
like,
are.
There are things for dads out there. I don't know, if it's, moms, we probably have a little more than that, but it is out there.
And they need the support. It's hard. It really is. And it's a lot, being a special needs parent, and then just being a black man in this world. I worry about his mental health, too. And I'm just like, it's a lot. You have to fight the world, and then home's supposed to be your peace. And then sometimes if home's not peaceful and you're dealing with all this extra stuff, I'm like, and I tell him, I'm like, go out with your friends, call a friend, go to a bar, do something, like, because you need to get out for, a little bit. And sometimes he'll text me, he's like, you okay? You good? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm so happy that he's out and just having a conversation with, his friends, his cousins, or whomever it is. Because I'm like, you need that. You really, really need that. Yeah. Like, I can't even stress how much. So I'm like looking into things, like that for him now, because it makes a world of difference.
I may have someone I know who does these beautiful. Okay. She's big on men and, so good. My goodness, this is great.
I know, no, really, because their mental health is so overlooked, and that's just what you're taught as a male, and I'm not raising my sons like that. Like, you can cry if you're upset, you show your emotions and all that. And even with my husband, I'm like, I'm always asking him, you okay? You okay? He's like, why do you keep asking me if I'm okay? I'm like, because I really want to know, because I want to get ahead of it. If you're not okay, don't tell me after you're not okay. Like, let's do what we need to do.
And we all, a family system, we don't all handle it in the same way, or emotions may not be the same on that same day.
Yeah.
But it's still an experience.
Yeah.
And how they experience it. And again, for males, having a son, a black son in today's world, and it's scary.
There's so much to worry about, and he's our protector, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's king of our home. He's our protector. So then I know that when he's feeling away, he doesn't know how to put that on me, because he's protecting my feelings, right? He's like, I don't want you to be upset, because y'all see I'm a crier. So, like, if he looks worried, I'm crying before I even know why. He's like, why are you crying? You don't even know why I'm upset. I'm like, I don't know. What's the matter? I'll cry for you. You don't want to cry, I cry. So, I know it's hard for him, and I work on that, right? Like, trying to be that, like, strong, like, you can tell me, go ahead, I can handle it. Like, are you struggling with something today about the kids or whatever? But I want him to find that. I try to be that for him. And I tell him, like, I'm going to cry, but that doesn't mean I don't want to know, right? Ignore the tears. I'm here for you. I'm crying because I want to be here for you. I don't want you to feel, whatever you're feeling. So, but it's hard. It's hard. I know he tries to protect me, which I know is even more of a load on him. Because I know everything I'm doing, and I'm protecting him as well, but I know it's a whole different as, like, dad, provider, protector. He's like, I got to take care of home. I can't show weakness. I can't be upset or anything. And I'm like, no, but you can, because we're dealing with this.
It's a lot of pressure, right? Like,
everyday
it's a lot
life
of pressure.
is a lot.
Yeah, so I'm going to connect you to someone who I think is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is my favorite part. So now, I would say in our pain, the purpose comes.
Yes.
And so in Philly, you have this, you're going to open this autism-certified childcare center.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I know, because I'm not crazy and busy enough.
You
right?
are a busy woman. You got a lot of things you do.
I know. So my husband and I purchased a building, and we've had it for, a little while now. We were just like, I wanted to do childcare years ago, right? And I kept then I was, I went into nursing, and then I went into pediatric nursing, and I felt fulfilled in that for a very, very long time. And then I started having my children. And the first thing that when you start taking your child to pediatricians or anywhere, and you're telling them about, all the signs you're seeing, they tell you to socialize your child, right? That's like the pediatrics number one advice.
Yes.
Which means that there are a lot of moms who don't know which way to turn, who are throwing their kids in daycare. And they're seeing these symptoms with their children. And they're just like, well, the doctor told me to socialize them, but then daycares, they're not fully equipped. They really aren't. They're not fully equipped. And it's not their fault. And it's like, I don't think so many centers even realize that this is the recommendation that pediatricians are giving these parents. So you're getting these children who we know are having these delays, and we're just kind of sticking them there. So I was like, all right, that's it. We're doing it. We're going to have a place. And in the community in inner city, the resources are not as, I was blessed that we were able to move. We went to Jersey. We were in Philly. We love Philly. That's where we're from. And when the schools weren't doing what we needed, we packed up and we left. But that's not the reality for most moms.
Yeah.
And I want to have those resources there. So we're taking our building that we didn't know what this dream has kind of folded and molded itself. We're renovating, completely sensory, friendly.
Ooh.
All kids. This is an inclusive environment. We want all children there.
Okay.
But we will be autism certified. And that's how we're just changing. It's a whole parent model of childcare.
You know that the weight that takes off a caretaker, like, oh, I'm sending them somewhere where they know, like that they've, have the experience, and to feel comfortable in that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, it's just been on my heart. I'm like, that's what we need, and I want it. I can open something anywhere, right? Like, I can pick anywhere in the world to do this, and I'm like, no, I want to give back into the community that's underserved the most. Yeah. Because that's where the help is needed. I want to go where the help is needed, and that's what we're doing. So we're doing all these renovations. It's going to be in Southwest Philadelphia.
Oh, get ready, y'all.
Get ready.
Get on a waiting list.
I know. It's literally like 10 minutes from CHOP. So, So we're kind of used to that area and stuff. So we're like, all right, let's kind of stay familiar. and have our resources right there. And then on weekends, we'll have parenting classes. These resources will be, completely free. It'll just be like a registration. I'm going to have sensory nights. I teach parents how to make these simple things that can help your child at home. The resources that I wanted and needed when I was first starting out, I'm going to have them all there for these moms. And also, your children will be well taken care of.
So this is what's coming up for me. Again, when you had your words with God and everything like that there was a bigger plan.
Yes.
Do you feel that? Like
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. I say all the time, my sons would have turned me into this mom regardless because they're amazing, but autism just helped move that process along. Wow. I had to take a big look at, and I said this on my Instagram, it was not about just the type of mom I wanted to be. Autism has made me a better person. It has changed how I look, how I interact with everyone, the patience I have with just everyday people that I meet out on the street, because I know that I want you to have that patience with my children. So I have to give that to the world if we're going to
want to receive that.
If we want to receive it, right? And it doesn't matter disability or what, but I'm just trying to be a more loving and patient person. Because that's like, we all just need that. Everyone's battling something that you know nothing about.
Right.
So like, and I still struggle. I check myself all the time, but you have to be able to check yourself, right? So
absolutely.
The purpose was so much bigger, and I'm finally like really moving in that. And everyone around me can see it, and they're like, you're doing it now. And I'm like, I know, I'm scared to death at the same time, but
now you got other stuff going on too. You are a Renaissance woman.
Yeah.
Let's talk about social media platforms.
Yes. So I run my social media. We're just kind of getting up and running there. So I was posting on my main, profile page, and I was like, all right, we need to like take this, off of here. I didn't want to like just dump that on people who didn't sign up for it, right? So I was like, all right, I'm just going to make a completely different page. And I was like, we're going to do Khrystine just 2.0, right? Because that's like the next step that you take after a diagnosis. This is the next step of motherhood. And it's been picking up quick. I mean, like, all of a sudden, like, even just yesterday, I was like, oh, where are these people, coming from for just, like, a month or two? But more than anything, not followers or anything, the amount of moms that come in my DMs and tell me that they're on this journey and they haven't told anyone yet.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
That alone, to be a part of that, I'm just like, wow, like, I'm the first person you're turning to. You trust me with that. And you know that your secret's safe with me. Even though, and I tell them, it doesn't have to be a secret. But that right there has been
incredible.
Just to be that for another woman is just amazing.
Now, where can they find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram, and it's Khrystine. So it's at KHRYSTINE_2.0.
So definitely reach out to Miss Khrystine.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much. You're amazing, Rashida.
Yeah, but before we go, let's give some words of wisdom to that mom out there that is just getting the diagnosis, or a mom that is struggling today, having, few children with autism, feeling punished, feeling a sense of guilt and self-blame. What would you tell them?
So one, as I've said, an autism diagnosis is not the end, it's just the start, right? A diagnosis gives you the resources you need for your child. It doesn't change them. Your child is the same exact child as when they walk into that office as when they walk out. Nothing changed. Just no one's walking around with their medical paper. Like, you don't have to think about that, right? So I want you to first take that into consideration. You yourself is the changes within you, right? Don't be afraid. And my biggest thing is get into some type of group. If you're more of a meet and greet person online or something, you need to get the support. I will say that is what changed so much for me. And and that's what makes me do this, because I want other moms just starting out to be like, okay, I can at least turn to her. I can look at her. She's going through it. She's real. She's showing us the real deal.
Right.
And I want you to find that, because it changes everything. It really, really does.
It does. Just like you said, having other people that actually get it. And, if you isolate, you're not going to know that, what you're going through is something that many other moms are going through.
Yes.
So I think that is just so powerful.
Yes.
And just remember, like, you are not alone on this journey.
You are not.
Whatever your support system is, whether it's family, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your higher power, whether, or a support group, there's help there. There's so much help out there.
There's so many resources. There really are. And I'm actually, last little plug here, but we have a website that we're up and running. I am not tech savvy, Rashida. You will understand that. You have no idea how long it takes me to upload one reel. But it will hopefully by the end of the month. And I have so many resources that I have loaded on there. And that's what I just want. I just want you to know the help is out there and how to find it. And so that's what we're looking for.
So, whatever I can do to promote you.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing, badass you are.
Thank you. I was nervous coming here, y'all. But
I don't know why.
Been, literally sitting with long lost family members. So you're amazing.
Now you made me tear up.
I know. No, she is amazing. I'm telling you, y'all. This energy, the vibe here.
I appreciate that.
And not to mention the way you run things. And Amina. You and Amina, y'all. I said
this is serious. Like,
these two, you run a tight ship, and I loved it. Just so organized. I was like, I can get down with this. Okay, she's got it all. You kept me in check. Like, do this, check. Like I said, back in February, and it took us now to get here, but I do all over again. I'm so happy to be here.
I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate you being on the show, being your most authentic self.
Thank you.
When your husband rolled up in the studio, I was like, this is some good stuff. You got support here.
Yes.
And I think that is great. And I thank you for being here as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And so on that note, we are coming to a close. So again, please make sure you tune in to our show. It is every Tuesday. If I'm committed to it, I need you to be committed to it. And again, if you don't have absolutely no support, just tune into the podcast where you're going to get some valuable, and again, a lot of these moms on our social media platform, and in the show notes, you can find out how to reach out to them. And sometimes they love to hear that you got a lot out of their episodes. So please give that feedback.
Please reach out to me. I beg people to talk to me about autism.
Yes,
literally.
She said it. So on that note, remember, stay fierce, stay determined, and stay courageous. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.